Hi, boys and girls. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Did you hang out at home with your family? Did you get to see some neighbor friends? Talk about all the things that you're thankful for? You know, one thing that I am thankful for is that God is my good shepherd, and He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. And that's what we're talking about today. You know, to understand this, like with all the other parts of Psalm 23 that we've learned so far, I really need to understand what it is about sheep and the paths that they take that would make it important for their shepherd to lead them on paths. And here's what I learned when I started studying this. Sheep like routine. Do you? I love a good routine. It's fun to change things up a little bit every now and then, but for the most part, I love the same things. I have favorite socks that make me happy when I wear them. I love the routine of setting up our Christmas tree while we watch Elf and drink hot cocoa. Every year we do that. I love the routine of Thanksgiving time spent together. My dad's cornbread dressing, my sister-in-law's cranberry salad. I love the routines of our school year and our summer break. I love routines. I like things to be the same with little tiny differences, but for the most part the same, because then I know what to expect. And when it happens, I feel like I've been able to get excited about it before it happens, and I can think about it after it's happened. Things make sense to me when they're the same and when they're routine. But you know what? When there's a routine, I find I don't need that much help. I know what to expect, like I said, so I can kind of figure out how to get things done on my own. And that's the problem. See, sheep like routines too, and they will walk the very same tiny little 6-inch wide pathway, one sheep behind the other sheep, because they've been there before and they follow that same trail. And after you walk a pathway through a field for a while, the grass starts to get squished down, and then the grass breaks, and then the grass dries up and dies, and then it's just dirt. And then the dirt gets worn away, and before you know it, a little pathway through the field has become a trench. And then it rains, and then it gets muddy, and then it gets disgusting, and it's a mess. And the sheep, like we talked about before, kind of fall over, and then they can't get up by themselves. They might get stuck. And what do they do when they're walking around all day, those sheep? They're eating. That's how they get their food and their water, is eating. And if they stay in the same area, they'll eat all the grass that they like, that tastes the best, all the grass and weeds and plants. And then they'll eat the ones they don't like as well. And then when they get really desperate, they'll start rooting in there as much as they can. They even eat the roots. And if they eat something, if a plant is taken out of the ground all the way down to its roots, can it grow back? No. It can't grow back again. So then instead of a beautiful, lush green pasture, you have barren dirt that just blows in the breeze. Nothing to eat. Nothing to soak in the rains into the ground like those plants and roots would do for the ground. Nothing can grow there anymore. And that is bad news for the sheep and the shepherd who need that land. That's the trouble with routine. Now, it's fine for a little while for the sheep to walk on that same path because it's a path that the shepherd has given them. He's made sure that there's nothing unsafe about the pathway and made sure that they have everything they need around it. So it's good for a while. But then the shepherd needs to move them to a different pasture. He rotates. There's rotational grazing, it's called. The sheep will eat here maybe for a week or so in this field, and then the shepherd takes them to a new field, and they'll need to eat there for a week or so, and then a new field, and then a new field. And you know what? This tells me something about that shepherd. Not only, as we've learned before, do shepherds work really, really hard with some fairly dumb animals, Those shepherds have to be so smart. Just look at all the stuff they have to know to figure out how to set up a grazing rotation that works well.
A good shepherd needs to know so many things about his pasture. He needs to know how a plant grows, when it's the healthiest, when it's going to be the biggest, when it makes seeds, when it'll start to die, how much of any kind of grass his herd needs, how much pasture it takes to grow that kind of grass, how much the milking animals need, what kinds of grasses and seeds are there, and what times of year they grow, and what parts of the country can those kinds of grasses grow best in, how to estimate the productivity of his field, what nutrients the animals need, what nutrients are in the grasses, how much water the animal needs, and what kind of plants they'll choose, and how close to their mouths will the grasses even grow, and how many animals go to pasture, and how many acres can you even fit that animal in, and then how to divide the land into rotational paddocks, and then make a rotation.
Oh my goodness, did you see all of that? That's a very complicated system. Well, guess what? Our Good Shepherd is the wisest. He knows all. He's omniscient. He had it figured out before he even created us. God knew exactly where we would make ruts, what our routines would be that would help make us forget that we even need his help, that we need him to lead us. He takes us to a new field where there is righteousness. We don't get stuck in the ruts of our own sin because it's comfortable. We don't get stuck in the ruts of relying on ourselves and thinking, I don't need help, I've got this. No, he takes us to places that are less comfortable and more difficult maybe, but at least unfamiliar. Because when we're there in a place that's less familiar, but we're with our Good Shepherd, whom we trust, we remember to rely on him and rest in his goodness. I didn't do anything to earn this green pasture. I'm just here to enjoy it and to take in everything that he's given me. Boys and girls, this year has been a year of scooping us out of our ruts and putting us in a new pasture. Just maybe God is leading us in paths of righteousness for his name's sake, so that, boys and girls, when we look back on the year 2020, when school got wacky and church got wacky and hanging out with friends and family, all that got wacky, what we'll remember is that God was still good. God still gave us all we need, and God taught us to rely on him. We'll be giving God glory. He's leading us in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Think about that this week. How is God leading you to rely more on him so that you will know better how good he is for his name's sake? Next week, I'll tell you 7 ways we need to give ourselves over to God to remember that he is leading us. We're not charging ahead in our own deep ruts. We're following our good shepherd. See you next week, boys and girls.